Today, I'm going to be showing you my pad thai that's inspired from my trip to Bangkok, and it's a really delicious dish to make. Some of the ingredients I've had to swap out, so it's not quite an authentic pad thai. However, it's still super tasty and a great dish to make for family or friends. So to start, I'm going to chop up my ingredients. Now, traditionally garlic chives are used. However, I couldn't find these and spring onions are a great substitute. Just going to slice them nice and thick, but not too big. For this recipe, I found that using the dark green bit is the best, and I'll save these little bits for another time. Now, I'm just going to mince up some garlic. I found that 3 cloves of garlic is a perfect amount for me. However, you can always add more or a little less if you don't like things too garlicky. Now, I'm just going to finely slice my shallot. Now for the tofu. I've always been a big fan of pad thai. However, going to Bangkok and getting to have a proper authentic pad thai was just so exciting for me. I loved it so much, I actually booked into a Thai cooking school to go and learn to make one. So I had a great time there. I remember thinking, God, I can't wait to come back and make this for my family and my friends. And what was really nice was just learning about how it can be quite adaptable. You know, at home you might not have the exact same ingredients, but it's trying to find those flavours and get it to taste, you know, that kind of sweet but sour all at once. And I know even in Thailand, pad thai differs, you know, throughout the whole of Thailand. So you can kind of make it to your taste, especially when it comes down to the sauce. For the tofu, I quite like the texture of it when it's chopped up quite small. Other people prefer it a little bit bigger. It's very much personal preference. I quite like it in these kind of size cubes so you get the texture of it, but it's not too overpowering. These are the main ingredients ready and chopped. I'm now also just going to prepare my toppings because whilst making a pad thai, it moves quite quickly with the egg and everything in the wok. So I'm just going to have it all ready to finish off at the end. These are just some peanuts. Just going to chop them up a little bit. These add a really nice crunch to the dish. So I'm just going to roughly chop these. I'm just roughly chopping this because it's quite nice having different sized bits of peanut. Again, just adds to that kind of texture and the crunch. Also just going to prepare my lime wedges. Now that's everything chopped. Time to make the sauce. Okay, so for the sauce, I have my fish sauce. Now this doesn't smell too good, but the taste is really, really delicious. Again, you can add a little bit less of this if you'd like. Now, tamarind comes in different forms. I was lucky to be able to find the paste at my local supermarket, but a little bit of research, there are other substitutes you can use if you can't find it. For me, this works perfectly. With a pad thai sauce, what you really want is there to be the kind of contrasting sweet and sour flavours, and you get the sweetness from the sugar, and then you've got the fish sauce, adds a bit of a kind of zing in your mouth. Same with the tamarind. If you'd like any of the measurements for what I'm doing, the recipe is in the description box. Now for the sweetness, usually it's palm sugar. However, I don't have any palm sugar and brown sugar is a great substitute for it. Now to my sauce, I'm gonna add some chili flakes. Actually, before I went to Thailand, I was terrible with spice. I could barely handle it. But being out there and trying so many different dishes and the amazing curries, I learned to really love it. So again, this is something you can adapt to your taste. I like mine quite spicy now, but each to their own. Now, there are very different ways to make the sauce. When you have palm sugar, people heat it up, let it caramelize, add some water so it dissolves. However, I learned to do it by just mixing all the ingredients in together. Very much up to you on which recipe you're following. So, my sauce is made. Now for the noodles. There are loads of different brands out there. These are my personal favourite. I just follow the instructions on the back of the packet, and for these ones, I just need to soak them in boiling water for 2 minutes. So my noodles are ready, and before I drain them, I'm actually just going to save a bit of the water they were soaked in. Now this is one trick I did learn whilst at my cooking class in Bangkok. And then I'm going to drain these off, just pop these back in the bowl, and they are all ready to use later. So I'm just going to set these aside. The reason I kept this water is because sometimes the pad thai can dry out a little bit whilst you're cooking it. So it's just to prevent that from happening, but you don't want it to be super saucy. Okay, so a wok is pretty essential for this dish. I'm just going to turn this on. Now I'm going to add some vegetable oil. As the oil's heating up, it's great to swirl it around the wok. Just kind of season the wok as you go. And the first stage is to cook my prawns and then set them aside, ready for later. And I'm just going to flip them over. I'm just going to set my prawns aside. Now, this is where things start to move a little bit faster. So I'm going to start by adding in my green onions, garlic, shallots. And then I like to just wait a second before I add the garlic, as you don't want it to burn, as it'll go quite bitter, won't taste as nice. Now for my garlic. And at the same time, my tofu. The tofu starts to get a lovely golden colour, means it's going to be nice and soft on the inside, a little bit crispy on the edges. When you're mixing it, you want to be careful though, because we've chopped it so nicely, you don't want to break it all up. Now, I want to add in my soaked noodles and very quickly after, my sauce. So, noodles in, and my sauce. This is starting to look pretty amazing. Just the rest of the sauce. Now this is where you can have a look and decide if you need a little bit of that water that we saved. Mine's looking pretty good for now, so I'm not going to. Now, time for another bit where you have to move relatively quick with the eggs. Push my noodles to one side, just like this. Then my eggs are going straight in. Because the wok is nice and hot, they start to cook quick. So get in with your spatula, break up that yolk. Now, another thing I then learned was to kind of spread it out a little bit and then just fold your noodles on top like this. And those eggs are gonna cook underneath the noodles. So you can see that egg has cooked nicely. Bean sprouts in. This is where I'm just gonna add a splash of water. This is smelling incredible. My prawns are going back in. You can use slightly bigger prawns. You can keep the tails on them. I like to give it a little squeeze of lime whilst it's still in the pan. I love my pad thai with quite a good squeeze of lime over the top. A nice sprinkle of my chopped peanuts. You can see why it's easier to have everything pre-prepared now. This is my version of a pad thai. Let me know if you make it at home and subscribe for more recipes like this one.